This month is all about productivity. How do we get things done? Not just the shiny things, not just the novel things. How do we get shit done? If only there was a person out there who wrote a book on ADHD and productivity, then we'd be good to... Oh, there is? Dr. Ari Tuckman? Say what? We gotta get him in here. You are listening to ADHD Big Brother, the podcast for adults struggling with their ADHD and their depression and anxiety and... I'm your host, Russ Jones. I'm an ADHD coach, and I run the Platinum Award-winning community coaching of the same name, ADHD Big Brother. And I also have ADHD and depression. It's craptastic. Welcome aboard. Let's learn some stuff, laugh at some stuff. And ladies and gentlemen, here's some stuff. Welcome to the podcast, the one and only podcast. It's not the one and only. I think there's about 300 million out there. Welcome to a podcast. This one is about ADHD, and this particular one is called ADHD Big Brother, and I appreciate your earballs. Thank you for listening with your earballs. your ear holes. This is an interview once, and I really enjoyed this conversation. So I want to burn through the whole Russ Jones report and get on with it. At the top of the show, as we all know, to normalize talking about our skull spaghetti, right? What's going on in the old cranium. It's because it's not always peaches, right? So peaches and plums. I can't say cupcakes and rainbows because cupcakes actually give me a stomach ache now. As I'm getting older, I think my stomach is like, no, we're not doing those anymore. It's a real bummer. But I like this. I like the talking about the skull spaghetti because it helps to come out of the shell, right? Share the truths, shame-free. So let's, everybody, single file, let's go into my brain. I'll tell you what it's been going on in the past week. I have this baseline melancholy, it seems, like when things are quiet. So I'm actively engaging in ways to raise those levels. I'm spending time with my girlfriend. Emily's rad. Alistair and I, my son, we started playing Subnautica together. He's a pro. It's like Minecraft underwater. Really fun. Makes me feel connected. And one of our community members, Lisa, shout out to you, Lisa. She hosted a productivity event in our community, and that was so much fun. We got to hang out, talk productivity. I am a dork for it. One bit of self-awareness I had is that, so I do one-on-one stuff as well, right? So like I'm almost maxed out, which is great. But you know what that means? It means that in my one-on-one appointments, they're all virtual. I'm engaging, it's fun, I'm listening, you're intently paying attention to someone. But what that physically is me intensely staring at a computer screen. And that's really fucking with my head. So I'm finding myself needing to really be extra diligent about scheduling time away from the computer screens. Like so much of what we do nowadays is via a computer screen or a mobile phone screen. So my goal is now to be more proactive in scheduling the non-screen, stuff. We'll see how it goes. Alrighty, that'll do it for my brain. All right, everybody get out. All right, you've spent enough time in here. Beat it. I'm actively working on it. So there's the positivity at the end there. I'm leaving it on a high note. And speaking of high notes, I got to meet ADHD royalty. The one and only Dr. Ari Tuckman came on to talk about ADHD and productivity. And this is right from his homepage. I can't imagine anybody's new to him, but if you do happen to be new to Dr. Ari Tuckman, let me tell you what he does, what he did, what he does currently. He's an experienced psychologist for over a couple of decades. He's an ADHD expert, a book author, multiple books, international presenter, media contributor, and he's a really neat guy. He was super fun to talk to and learn from. And his most recent book, the ADHD Productivity Manual, is now available. Link in the show notes. So let's just go. Let's just jump right into the conversation with Dr. Tuckman, already in progress. You wrote a book about productivity, which is so near and dear to my heart.
Yes.
I am such a dork for productivity, but so I guess that the honest question here is, of all of all the ADHD struggles, your emotional
Mhm.
dysregulation, your time blindness, all of them. Why did you decide productivity is the book to write about?
I mean, the thing of it is, I mean, every freaking book about ADHD is ultimately about productivity, right? It's about getting shit done because
Yes.
there's
Yes.
stuff to do, right? Like we got
Yes.
stuff to do. Um, and some of it's just boring things like loading the dishwasher or simple things like loading the dishwasher. Some things are much more complicated, like calculus or I don't know, things you get paid for at work and taxes and whatever. But like I don't know. Like we always have stuff to do. Everybody's got
Yeah.
stuff to do. Everybody complains about having too much stuff to do, whether it's actually too much or not. I mean, whatever. But like, yeah, I mean, it's really always about productivity in a way. And, I've been doing this a long time. I've been a psychologist for like more than 25 years at this point somehow. I'm not
Wow.
sure how that happened, but yeah. So
They let
I
you
have a
do it for
lot,
20 years.
right? So I've had a lot of conversations about productivity or
Hmm.
lack thereof, or, dashed dreams of productivity or whatever. And I really wanted this to be the book that's like all about productivity. Like it's not about relationships per se. It's not about like whatever. It's just like this is about how to get stuff done. And it's about all the different ways all the different things that potentially get in the way of getting
Yeah.
things done. And also, like the flip side of that is when you're not getting things done, here's all the different things to consider. That like here are your possible like solutions and strategies and, remedies and whatever. So that's kind of the goal of the book.
Oh, that's awesome. And I read through the chapter breakdowns of the stuff that you gave me, and I personally cannot wait to buy it in the hardcover. But there's also you're funny, which I
Yeah.
really really appreciate. And there's a couple of things that I caught. One of them is your introduction. Just the title of the introduction was seriously another book on ADHD, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh my god, thank you for calling that out. That is so hilarious. But I mean, there are a ton of books out there. But can I say something about the way that you write, which I truly, truly appreciate? And we talked about this offline, is you give us stuff to do.
Hmm.
There's two components to this for me. One is tell me how to do a thing. And
Hmm.
then the other part is how do I do the thing? Like just because I'm told how to do it doesn't mean I'm going to do it.
Sure.
But we can do that in our community. We brought the workbook. I forgot the name already, and I just showed it. I literally just
Understand your
showed
brain,
it to
get more
you.
done. Yeah.
Understand your brain, get more done. There it is. The it was workbook style. So as a book club type situation, we could do the work. And you do have that in this book. I know there's the section at the end of
Yeah.
every chapter, which is put it to work. And it's almost like you ask therapy type questions or coaching type questions, which is what's getting in the
Yeah.
way? How are you going to implement this? Can you talk a little bit about putting that into your book?
Yeah. And that was really an intentional thing, right?
Cool.
Because, like, as you said, information's easy, right? Knowing is easy. It's sort of like, here, let me tell you how to climb Mount Everest. Pack up a bunch of stuff and you just keep walking, right? There. Why haven't you done it yet?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Right, exactly. But it's the like doing it, like doing so that you actually get the benefit in your life. Like ideas are interesting, but we care about like I want my life to be better. I want to accomplish the things I want to accomplish. I want good things in my life. I want less bad things or people being annoyed at me or,
Oh,
whatever.
right.
So like and like but that's also kind of the bigger picture on this really is it's kind of a book on productivity, but really what it is it's a book about having a better life, right? Because it's productivity for a purpose, right? And
Right.
that is to live a life that you feel good in, that you feel good about yourself in, that you're not only sort of checking boxes on things that are going to blow up on you, right? In other words, eliminate the negatives and the problems, right? That only gets you to zero. That's not fulfilling or interesting. It's just not bad, right? And not
Yeah.
bad is a low bar. it's really about having time and energy to add in the good stuff, right? What's meaningful to you? What's interesting? What do you want more of in your life? And that, that's the stuff that gets squeezed out when you're just scrambling in front of the avalanche, you know?
Yeah.
So like that's really kind of what we're talking about is how to do the things to make your life better.
Yeah. Do you hear a lot of the thing that pops up into my head is the catchphrase, oh, if I just had a system. And
Mm,
I do this all the time, and I'll have like a cluttery mess in one area of my life. Oh man, if I just had a system for dealing with that corner of
right,
my house every night
right.
at 5 p.m. I do blah 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 blah. Can you speak to that a little bit of the desire for a system?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's not wrong having that
Yeah.
desire for a system, right?
Wouldn't it be
And
rad? Wouldn't it be
right,
great?
right. Yeah. And the thing is, it's like half of a good idea, because like having a system is definitely helpful compared to not having a system, or having a good system is better than having a bad system.
Yeah.
But it's that doing, right? It's not just about having the system, it's about using it every so often, at least, And like it's the using it is where, in general, people overall tend to break down, but especially folks with ADHD and other people for other reasons. But so it's really about kind of using those systems in a consistent kind of a way, right? That's the big challenge.
Yeah. Um, I have a radical question to ask you. And then I
Yeah.
actually had to have AI help me write it because I was like, this is going to make me sound like an evil person or something. And I'm like, it's an honest question, but I don't know how to
Yeah.
say it right. Let me read you what AI and I came up with. And
Okay.
then if it doesn't make any sense, I'll just throw my blunt thing and
Yeah.
just hope nobody hates me.
Yeah. And I'll call my lawyer to give you an answer.
Exactly. Okay, here
Okay.
it
I got
is.
to get a lawyer.
Yeah, Dr. Tuckman, in your experience, do you find that the concept of productivity, of which I am a total fan, I'm a total geek for,
Hmm.
can sometimes feel loaded or even negative, especially for individuals who already face challenges with it due to ADHD? So there's a growing awareness of the need for rest, right? And self-care.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so how do we navigate the line between genuinely needing rest and when that desire for rest might be a manifestation of or avoidance or like internal resistance that many of us with ADHD experience towards certain tasks?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So
Did
it
that?
does. It
Oh
does.
man.
Oh, man. That's
Do you need a
awesome.
lawyer for that one? Or am I a
No,
jerk
no,
for
I
saying
don't.
that? How dare
No.
you poo poo on
Right.
self care?
So this is actually a really important question, right?
Oh,
Because
thank you.
because the answer is it's all of this stuff, right? I mean, this is why I wrote a book and not a pamphlet, right? In that it does get complicated because there's the obvious thing of, it's good to get things done, like we said, right? And
Yeah.
okay, we can go into like capitalism and colonialism. We can talk about all the sort of evils of being a slave to the watch and, working for the man and all of that, right? Like, and all of
Yeah.
that, there is some truth to that too. But, you know, throughout the book and in general, when I talk to clients about this and presentations and whatnot, like there is this other piece of it, which is for you at this point in your life, what is the right level of productivity? What are the things that you want to be productive on? Right. And that definitely as a therapist, it's not my place to say you should do this and you should do that. I mean, I can tell myself that, but it's not my
Mhm.
place to tell you that because you got to figure it out. And, the way that I think about it is it's sort of like, I guess, a couple of catchphrases. One is, what do you want and what are you willing to do to get it? Right.
Okay.
So if we take like a simple, I don't know, or just like a
Yeah.
whatever, right? Like, let's say you want a promotion at work, right? That, you look at it and you're like, there is good things that come from that. Here are my reasons why that's important. Okay, great. Well, what's it going to take to do it, right? What will it take to get that promotion? And is it worth it to you? And maybe it
Yeah.
is. And you're like, you know what? I'm willing to suffer and sacrifice to get there. But also maybe it's not worth it, where you look and you're like, I don't want to be a manager. I like doing the job, not managing other people doing the job. And by the way, they pay you $1 an hour more and you work 20 more hours a week. So like, fuck
Yeah.
that. Right.
Yeah. Right.
So in that case, not worth it. And the thing for me is it's kind of like do whatever you want, just be honest about it, right? So in other words, if
Mhm.
it's worth doing it, put in the effort and feel good about it. If it's not worth doing it, then say this is not worth doing. I am okay with this. I accept where I am. I think where things get messy, which is, why a psychologist has a job, is when people say like, oh, I want to do this thing, or I want to get this place really cleaned up. I want to deal with all my piles, or I want to get into shape, or I want to eat more vegetables, or I want to get to bed on time. But then they don't do enough of the things, right? Which,
Yeah.
on the one hand, maybe there's that ADHD inefficiency, so to speak, right? The goal is a valid one or, a legit goal, but they have trouble making it happen.
Yeah.
But maybe it's deeper than that. Maybe it's like you don't actually want that goal. Other people want you to want that goal, and you
Oh,
feel like you should want it, but you don't actually really want it. And that's okay. But I think, maybe you haven't quite gotten to the point of saying, you know what? Not actually like not a goal right now. I'm not saying
that's
there's anything
so
wrong with it,
interesting.
but like right now, this is not the thing. I like my finite time and energy. It's not going here,
That
So
that
so
seems
there's that
so
too.
hard for an ADHDer to discern some of these things because I can only take myself right now, but like so for exercise, it's sort of
Mm,
so hard for me. And I've
sure.
said on the podcast tons of times, I used to be super, super healthy. And then, depressive episode, everything goes out the window and it's so hard to
Yep.
come back. But how discerning whether or not I am, it's truly not a goal or a good goal for me at the moment. And my ADHD is preventing me from getting started. It's such a tricky mistress. It could be,
Yes.
I could be like, I'm having such a struggle here. I guess it's not important to me, or I guess it's not a good goal. Oh man, that is
Yeah.
the question of the
And
ages.
it gets really tangled. I mean, look, this is
Yeah.
a universal human challenge, right? Like everybody
Mhm.
faces this. But where it gets more tangled is when you have a history of ADHD and struggles with getting things done and being consistent and meeting other people's expectations and all the things that come out of that and the opinions that people have and the things that they say and the things that you infer and think they're thinking and right like it gets even more tangled and you know so this is definitely a message I hit pretty hard throughout the book is that as much as I'm all in favor of new strategies to be more effective and to be more efficient, it's ultimately there's still that question of like, well, but what do I really want? Like, what is worth it to me at this point in my life? Can't do everything. So what's
Yeah.
not making the cut, right? But if you're managing your ADHD more efficiently, it can sort of begin to clarify that because at least you take that piece out of it, right? That thing of do I want it, but I can't pull it off,
Right.
So if you can generally be more effective on, certain things, if you have a little bit more room to breathe, a little bit more space to think about what you want, if you don't feel like you're chronically behind and owing somebody something, right? Like you're in a better position to think about like, for me, what do I want? And there's less of that other people sort of imposing on you
Oh yeah.
and just that awful feeling of like owing people things and all the crazy things our anxiety and depression tells us and it just hopefully begins to kind of unmuddy the waters a little bit.
Right. There's this aspect of for me, and there's a bunch of us with ADHD, right? That are it's like solopreneur types. So we
Yep.
dictate our schedule and how
Yeah.
do we figure out what's the best use of our time? And I could be productive all day and not do shit.
Yeah.
Right? Is there? I almost said, is there a system for figuring out what is there a what kind of advice would you give to someone? Or how about this? Is this inside in your book in terms of setting proper goals and priorities and figuring out priorities in order to figure out what to do with my time.
Yeah. And that's a big one, especially when you work for yourself, you
Yeah.
know, or for anybody in our personal lives, right? Is that there's always more ideas than time. And if you don't have more ideas than time, then like, come on, man, you need to get more ideas. Like, you're boring and not creative if you're like, I have nothing at all to do. Right. So, and of course, the problem, especially when work for yourself, is there's always a million things to do. But like definitely some of them have higher returns than others,
Yeah. Yeah.
So the challenge there is to not just go chasing the next shiny thing. And of course, we're all amazing at justifying, it's like, this is getting uncomfortable and hard. Oh,
Yeah.
but this thing over here, there's a lot to be said for starting a new Instagram account and blah, blah, blah. And like, think about
Yeah.
all the you can make up some bullshit reason that sounds kind of reasonable, but it's, which kind of brings up the question, am I doing this or am I not doing that? Like, really, what I
Oh,
should be
yeah.
doing is, and it's easy, right? It's easy for all of us to justify that other stuff. Again, especially if you are kind of creative, a little bit creative, you come up with all sorts of ideas.
Oh, yeah. I do it a lot of the time where you go, oh, I'm going to start a Substack and do this, or I'm going to create this new space in the community, or I'm going to do this new thing. And it has nothing to do with business development or like the things that I need to do to move the needle forward. But it's fun. It's exciting to me, right?
It is.
And I can totally twist it to be, I like what you're saying, to justify it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
So that's really like, I mean, there's going to be other people. So people who tend to be more fearful and anxious, right? They're going to have the opposite problem of taking those steps and whatever, right? But if you're someone with ADHD, the problem for you, the challenge for you is more likely going to be following through to the end. So, a small number of things rather than starting a large number of things.
Yeah. I have to, and a lot of times, like, so people aren't going to see this on the podcast, but I have to externalize everything. So I have to put my week in front of my face, because whenever I sit down, I look to the right and there it is.
Yeah.
And I will
Smart.
still not do my list. So I'm getting better now at going, this is my list. What am I putting on in my bullet journal today that's on there? And my goal is to have a week where I hit everything.
Yeah.
So,
but that's it. Like, so there's a number of things in that. I think, first of all, putting up the list is no guarantee you're going to follow the list, you know? However, it does significantly up the odds that you will, right?
Yeah.
No list versus a list, measurable difference,
Totally.
or at least it puts you in striking distance, So definitely that, right? Keep doing it. And then, of course, like, how do we define success, right? If you did half the stuff on your list, is the problem the execution of doing things? Or is the problem it was the list in making the list was you had too much on there, or you had things on there that were just not going to happen this week, right? So like, in terms of like debriefing on Friday afternoon, right? Like, that's the question, like those are the two questions to look at. But even there is an art, as much as there's the easy advice of like, use a to-do list, duh. But like, there's an art to using a to-do list of like, does this even get put on the list in the first place? Right? Because again, lots of ideas are interesting, but only some ideas are worth investing in. So, does it even get written down? And if it does, how does it get written down and where does it get written down? I often recommend kind of time blocking, so in other words, taking stuff off of the to-do list and putting it onto your calendar at a specific day and time, which again is not a guarantee. And it doesn't have to happen on Tuesday at 3. But if it has a time, it's more likely to happen. Because the problem with to-do lists is they're sort of, I don't know, they're graveyards of failed aspirations, and then it just becomes overwhelming and guilt inducing. And then you're just like, I'm not going to look at the list because it just makes me feel like shit. So,
people talk about that all the time. Like their list. Yeah. They're intentional with their list, but then the list grows to a point of overwhelm and therefore it goes away. I agree, by the
kind
way.
of,
Like, I use this term a lot, which is that none of this stuff is a guarantee, but we're in
mhm.
service of more likely. We're in
Yes,
service of
yes,
how do we make it more likely to happen. But I
yeah,
think our brains are going, I want the spark that makes it happen for sure. I want the guarantee,
yeah.
but we
And
can't have
anybody
that.
who promises you a guarantee or if they use words like revolutionary, life-changing, transformative, it's bullshit, right? Like either they are idiots and they don't know what they're talking about, or they're lying to you, right? Nothing is that good, and nobody needs more failure experiences.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
so run the other way when people use stuff like that. But, but
Transform.
part yeah, makes me crazy. But the other thing about, like that overwhelming to-do list is if your list has become overwhelming, you need to then go through it with a weed whacker. Like you need to delete things off of the list and just say, it seems this will never happen. I'm letting it go. Right. Because the thing is, you're not going to get to it anyway. Right. Like the reality is, you will not get to it. So, like, just accept that truth, mourn the loss, perhaps, and move on. So part of
God, that's
managing to
interesting.
do lists or piles or emails or whatever is knowing when to say when. Right. To sort of accept the hard
Yeah.
truth of this shall not be, but it's stressing me out and it's getting in the way of seeing the stuff that actually could be done and should be done.
Yeah.
So like that's part of it too, is dumping stuff off. But I think that can be hard to do if you feel like, but I should have done it. Had I managed my time better, it would
Right.
have been done. So I owe it, I guess, to the universe or to Jesus or someone, your mom, I don't know who
Yeah.
you owe it to, your first grade teacher, that like you should have done this. So therefore you're not allowed to cut it loose.
Oh my God. This makes me think of the like who is it? Maria Kondo. Like we treat our to-do list like our clutter. Is this
Mm,
to-do item giving me joy? Does it not?
yes.
Then I have to let it go. I have to take
Yeah.
the there's like a sense of like I can't let this, I'm hoarding my to-do item. I can't give it up. But I love the weed whacker idea. Like just chop away.
Yeah. Yeah. Its time has passed,
If it was
you
meant to
know?
be, it'll come back. It's like
Right.
you're letting
Right.
go of a lover. Hey, if they're meant to be, they'll come back. And
Right.
then
Exactly.
and it'll be clean out
So,
your fridge, dude. Clean out your
right.
fridge.
And of course,
Uh,
the thing of it is, like, if as long as it's still on your to-do list, you don't have to admit failure, right? Because
oh
the
yeah.
possibility
Yeah, yeah.
still exists. So I get that. But also the problem is it sets up the next failure, right? Because if your list is overwhelming and you don't want to look at it, then it's not helping you do the things that actually could be done today. In that there's always a reassessment, right? It seemed a week ago when I put it on there, it seemed pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Other things have happened. It didn't whether it should or shouldn't have happened, it didn't. So here I am now, right? It doesn't matter 6 days ago if that would have been the thing to do, right? Here I am now. Is it still the thing to do? And maybe the answer is no.
Yeah. That's a or is what's the bad thing that happens if I get rid of it? What
Hmm.
like right? If nothing bad is going to happen to me, then why am I hanging on to it?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
only danger of that is like, well, something bad's going to happen in a week if you don't do it. But
Yeah.
oh, that reminded me of a thing that you wrote in your book of it was hold please. Let me look at my papers. Let me look at my it was about
Please consult scripture.
it's in chapter 5 verse 3 of the
Yes.
ADHD productivity manual. It was about planning to procrastinate. It was about
Mm,
setting deadlines. I'll do this sometimes with clients to be like, okay, what if you set your deadline earlier, right? You had a thing in here that was talking about block out time like 2 hours before it's due because that's when you're going to be
yeah.
scrambling anyway,
Yeah.
so that nothing can get in there.
Yeah.
Oh, that was brilliant. Great nugget. Just wanted to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. That was actually, that kind of came from a client of mine who's an attorney. So,
Uh-huh.
like, if you're an attorney, you have really important deadlines, right? Like, if you
Oh yeah.
miss a filing deadline, the case gets dropped and you get sued for malpractice, So like that, yeah, like he knows it's the night before, right? That's when he's going to write up the brief, which is fine as long as you don't have other things the night before, right?
Yeah.
So there's that little bit of intentionality of just, well, I mean, there's the, awareness, first of all, of like, let's not fool anyone. I'm not doing this 4 days before.
Yeah.
But, it's blocking the time and just saying this is what it's for. Now, the only sort of caveat or, thing to be careful of is will random unplanned things pop up? Is
Mhm.
that a possibility? Also, if you say, here's my 2 hours, is it really a 2 hour job? Right.
It's a
Because sometimes it
3 hour
is.
thing and you're screwed.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
So
Right.
like, can you reliably predict that this is 2 hours and there's not going to be anything of like, oh no, I don't have any inkjet cartridge. It ran out, or
Oh,
something. Right.
yeah.
So as long as you do a little bit of that kind of thinking ahead or planning, fine. Just like use your kind of self-awareness and your strength at getting things done and the pressure of the deadline. And, now other people might get anxious about it, right? They might say, I would do this, 19 days before, just so that way I don't have to worry about it, which is
Yeah.
great for them if that's what works to knock yourself out. But, you might have to deal with other people's anxiety. As I say, untreated ADHD sometimes, or untreated ADHD can lead to anxiety, but not always in the person with ADHD, so you might have to
Yeah.
manage the social aspects of this, but,
Yeah.
you know, that's part of life also.
Yeah. God, that's so interesting. Um, this has been super fun about talking about productivity because I just genuinely love this topic.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
so near and dear to my heart. I'm always about the doing of the work. I I don't remember if we talked about this offline or if we talked about it early up top, but like there's so many books out there and so many videos. And do you get, oh, this is an interesting question. I would love to hear your take on this. I'm a coach, so I coach adults with ADHD, and
Mhm.
typically what I find is that there's this learning curve of there's everybody knows so much about their own ADHD. They've read all the books. So
Mhm.
they are really, really good at explaining why they're not doing the thing.
Yeah.
So there's like this, the first few weeks is usually like, low dopamine, didn't have a dopamine boost, couldn't
Yeah.
get my dope. And I was like, okay, so now even though that, what are we going to do now? Oh, it's because of time blindness. I time blinded myself out of that
Yeah.
one. Like, okay,
Yeah.
do you find that in your practice? Because I mean, 20 some years of doing this work, right?
Yeah.
What do you find is like the overarching, this happens every single time?
So I think and like that's definitely a thing, right? And it is helpful to say as you gave the example, right? Like, oh, that was time blindness that got in the way, right? And maybe in assuming it was, right? That
Yeah.
like, yes, indeed, lost track of time. So um but that only tells you the cause of what got in the way. It doesn't necessarily tell you the solution.
Mhm.
Although having the cause is a really good start, right? And this is somebody else's saying, but a problem well defined is a problem half solved, right? So in other words, why didn't you get it done? I don't know. Well, like you're done, right? You're dead in the water with that versus why didn't you get it done? Well, I lost track of time. And then actually, when I started thinking about it, really started getting kind of anxious about it because I don't really know what I'm doing with this. And I'm worried I'm going to screw it up. I'm already on a bit of thin ice with my boss and like, blah, blah, blah. And also I wasn't sleeping well because I was worrying so much about like, now we have a bunch of points of intervention, right? Now
Yeah.
we're targeted in a little bit more specifically on things that are going to be helpful, right? And this is where sort of one trick pony or one size fits all kind of advice isn't helpful, right? So
Mhm.
if you tell the person, oh, you should just map out your time, I mean, I don't know, maybe that would help with the time blindness, perhaps, but it's not going to help with the anxiety. It's not going to help with the bad sleep. It's not going to help with
Right.
the, social pressure from the boss. So, um, and not to sound too pitchy or anything, but like this is why I wrote the book is like it's
Yeah.
36 chapters. It's all these different things that potentially are going to get in your way. And then more importantly, what do you do about it? Because it doesn't matter if you address 35 of them, if there's still one more that's really the thing that's jamming on the brakes, you
Yeah.
know? So I think that like that's the nuance, right? Whether it's us for ourselves, of like, why am I getting stuck? Or, helping a person that we're coaching or doing therapy or teaching or a spouse or a friend or whoever.
I would love a world where people could coach themselves, where people
Mm-hmm.
can get the information and speak to themselves in a way where they can go, oh, I'm a huge accountability nerd myself as well.
Yeah,
Like that's
it's
the whole
good.
community's built on that, right? Of like, how do
Yeah.
we do the thing? But I love the idea that this book is filled with all of those solutions. Can you give us a couple of shiny nuggets from your book? Uh, can I throw out some ideas and then you give me the shiny nugget?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm on the spot with myself. I put myself on the
I
spot
know.
and now my brain is farting.
I
No,
know
I got,
you were putting me on the spot and then you swung it back to
I
yourself. So I was
redacted it.
starting to sweat. Yeah.
I was going to be like, pick just from the ether something that's
Right.
going to be helpful to everybody at the
Right.
same time.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, Dr. Tuckman. Here's my question for you. Okay, so let's say I'm a person who I pray to the timer God. I believe wholeheartedly in the timer. And I'm sure people want me to shut up about it. Uh, are you going to tell me to shut up about it, or are you going to preach to the
I'm gonna tell
choir?
everyone else to shut up about it.
Yeah, dude. Let's
Yeah.
go. Talk to us about timers, please.
Yeah. Like there is definitely a place in the world for timers, right? There is, because timers count much better than we do. Like you get
Yeah.
caught up in something, you probably suck at counting time. So, like absolutely timers can be helpful, but but there is definitely, again, there's an art to using timers, like when does, I mean, it's one thing if you're like, I got to leave in 5 minutes, so like, let me set this for 5 minutes. I guess that's not really that hard. But, for other things like, other setting alarms and reminders and whatever, it's like, well, let me think for a moment. If I'm going to set this for 3, where might I actually be at 3? What's going to be going on? If I'm in the middle of something else, that's not the time to set a timer for, because you're just going to turn it off and go back to what you were doing, or it's going to screw you up on the thing that you started doing. So, so some of that is to really know what you have coming up, to think about, is this the time for this thing to go off or not? So there's definitely some planning to be done on that. But I've definitely had more than one client with some variation of this line. Yeah, I tried setting timers, but they don't really work because I just turn the thing off and I don't do it. Right. And I'll admit it took me a little while to sort of figure this one out. But here's my response. The timer works. It does. Right. The timer just tells you, hey, man, it's 3 o'clock. That's it. It doesn't make you do it. Right. It doesn't pull out a gun. It doesn't give you a cookie. Right. It doesn't create the motivation to do the task. It
Yeah.
just tells you what time it is, period. So in that sense, the problem is they're expecting the timer to do something it can't do. Right. So that whole motivation piece is a whole different discussion.
I love that. I love the idea that it's like it is a friend that taps you on the shoulder and says, oh, hey, you wanted me to pop in at 30 minutes and tell you when 30 minutes is up because I know you're going to be engrossed in
Yeah.
what you're doing. Hey, it's been 30
Yeah.
minutes. Now what? But it's not telling you to do anything. It's literally, I
Yeah.
love that. It's just telling you
Yeah.
it's been 30 minutes, dude.
Yeah.
Okay.
FYI, 30 minutes. That's it.
Follow up for Dr. Ari Tuckman. Here we
Yeah.
go. Burnout. Burnout is such a huge, big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I relate to it that I can give up my life. I become the thing that I hyper focus on, right? I go down this rabbit trail and I become the thing. And what happens is I'm not aware that my energy is just going to go to shit after like 7 hours or after
Sure.
3 weeks of doing a thing, and then I lose all love for that thing and I can't do it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you speak to burnout and how to avoid it, maybe?
Hmm. I mean, it's definitely like, feeling like you're always behind, or you owe people things, or you worry you owe people things, or like it's an easy setup for feeling, for just having to give too much, right? And cutting corners on self-care in all the different ways. Like that is definitely an easy place to get to. And on the one hand, you're probably getting a lot done, at least in the beginning, so like there's something to be said for it. But of course, the problem is then you start reaching that point where you're not as effective anymore, and it's more of that death march kind of a thing. And then you have less for what else needs to be done. So, but this is, as always, the easy part to say of like, make sure you get enough sleep and exercise
Yeah.
and, eat vegetables and whatever. But it's, of course, the doing it. And to do it requires that you have enough of your life in order. So it's not as easy as that, but it is absolutely a good goal. And if you find yourself getting burned out, it's kind of a red flag that something isn't working, and the obvious thing is if you were more efficient, you get stuff done in less time and then you wouldn't be burned out, right? Okay,
Right.
there's probably some truth in that. I mean, you and I both shared lots of strategies of how to be more efficient. But, there is that other side, which is maybe it's not ultimately at some point about becoming more efficient. It's more a matter of beginning to make some choices, by which I mean hard choices. I can't do all of these things. What isn't getting done? Right.
Mhm.
In actively making decisions rather than running out of time and then whatever's left doesn't get done. It also means managing the social aspect of it. Of like, hey, man, yeah, I'm not going to get you that thing today. Maybe next week. Or I'm actually not going to do it. Like, I can't do it. I wish I could, but I just, it's not going to happen. And then having those discussions, preferably earlier and not later, right? So,
Yeah.
um, ideally it would be when you say, hey, I got this, if you're like, oh, come on my podcast, right? At that moment for me to say, God, you know what? I really like to, but I'm like, neck deep in whatever. And I just, I can't do it versus, okay, that sounds good. And then the day before saying, oh, shit, I can't because, whatever. Right. And now you're scrambling for a guest at the last minute or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's that kind of good intentions of, I think I can do this, or it's a fear of disappointment and praying for a miracle that somehow it's going to come together. Or if you don't really know what your schedule is, being like, oh, I can do it. And then not realizing, wait a second, I can't do it. I have so many things that week,
Yeah.
like, no way can I do that. Right. So like that, there's obviously a lot to it, but it all points in the same direction, which is the more on top of your ADHD you are, the more on top of your life you are, the better position you're in to be able to, make some of those choices and to be able to kind of hold your ground in a good way with the people around you.
Yeah. You touched on something that I find to be very difficult. I'm getting better at this myself, but I find it to be very hard, which is planning for things that planning for a month from now, planning something that's 2 months from now. Future planning is so fucking hard. Um,
Hmm.
it's really easy to be like, plan today or
Yeah,
plan the week, but planning for a person I don't even know exists. I don't even know what me 3 months is going to be like. So
sure.
how the fuck do I know what he's going to be doing 10 minutes on the
Yeah,
taxes and 10? It's so
yeah.
freaking hard. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, and it is. I mean, it is, but it's also, I don't know. At least I think at least with some things we need to do that,
yeah.
and but I think there's also something of maybe sort of picking the situations that you put yourself in, like that might also be something of like these cater more to my strengths. these other things not so much. I think I need to not do those things. Or
Yeah.
I'm going to do it with somebody else who's better at it and they can do the planning and then go, hey, man, you need to, this week we need to whatever. And you're like, oh, okay. So, there's that part too.
That just gave me an idea of a challenge of having somebody else plan my day and I plan somebody else's day, like an accountability buddy, and be like, okay, this is what you have to get done today. Like, wait, what?
Nice.
I think there's got to be rules to that, but oh my God, that sounds cool. Thank you for being here. I mean, we're kind of up on time. Can you mention when can I buy your physical book? Because I want it.
Yeah. So it's coming out May 9th. May 9th, it'll be available. I think it's sort of, I'm self-publishing this time. And I think at least on Amazon, like
what a nightmare.
Yeah, actually, it's been good. I hired a consultant who walked me through all the details, and it's actually been great. And it's out like at least a year earlier than it would have if I went through a publisher. So I'm actually pretty happy about it. But
cool.
So yeah, ebooks are going to be available for pre-order, but the book for some reason doesn't become available to order until it's actually available, which is going to be May 9th, if not maybe a little bit before.
Oh, wait a minute. When can people pre-order the ebook then? Or can they get it earlier?
No, not yet.
Okay. But they can pre-order
as of this moment, it's not yet on Amazon, but it will be somewhat soon. So
okay. So how about this? Whenever that happens, I wonder if we're going to release this right when it comes out. Maybe we should do that.
Yeah.
Like, let's do it. Like, so how to get it will be in the show notes. The
Otherwise,
link to buy it.
It's like a cock tease. Hey, here's this great thing, but you can't get it. And when
you can't have it,
you will have forgotten it.
No, I've got an advanced PDF.
Right.
That I'm not going to read because I want your physical book. Ari, I want your book. So let's end this like a 1980s film. Hey, so what next? Go back to college? What's next for you? So where are you going to go next?
Get the band back together.
We're going to tour maybe. Get my life back together.
We're big in Cleveland.
Are you book tour guy now, or like what's on the horizon for you?
I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to do a lot of this. I'm going to come on a podcast and talk to people. I love this, right? I love kind of shooting the shit with people who are smart and fun and get it. So a bunch of this, I'll do presenting for other, like all sorts of people. And I love the writing. Like I love putting on my headphones and cranking up the music and just banging out words. But I love this also, right? I love all parts of it. And, you spend a bunch of time kind of thinking and banging your head into something and getting it out. And then you get to sort of go out into the world and share it. And that's a whole lot of fun too.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm the same way. I like this part, the peopling part. I get my juice from the conversations with people and from meeting people like you and getting to getting to have a conversation with you. Like these things juice me up. Thank you so much for being here, Ari. I appreciate it.
Awesome. This was super fun. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh my God, he's the greatest. Let's get this book going. That was so much fun. Okay, I just physically received the book in the mail. It just came. I'm so excited about it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a book club in the community. We've already done an Ari Tuckman book in the past. Luve, shout out to you, buddy. Remember when we went through Understand Your Brain, Get More Done, the ADHD Executive Functions Workbook? This is how ADHDers can do the work. Like you set up a book club or an accountability group so that it's not just about reading the book. It's about putting the book to practice. And you guys, he said he'd pop in to our book club. How cool is that? So let's put this productivity shit to work. Who's with me? Who wants in? If you're a community member already, you already know about this. We've already mentioned it. And if you're a community member who maybe hasn't jumped in just yet to engage or haven't logged in a little bit, now would be a great time to jump in. Let's be lab rats together for this book. Productivity, Ari Tuckman style. And if you aren't a community member yet, there's no time like the present to get your shit together. Let's go. That'll do it for this week. Huge thank you to Ari for coming on the show. And reminder to check all the show notes for all those fun links to purchase the book. And with that, I hope you guys have a fantastic week. And I will talk to you later.